In this video we'll be taking a look at how we can model this joystick. Your design doesn't have to match this one, so what I'd probably recommend you do is firstly, if you've not already seen it, watch the previous video that I made about the Bevel after boolean add-on, and then if you come back to this one, I would watch it all the way through initially without trying to follow along, and then once you've sort of grasped the concept, you can then use the technique to model something different, something your own design. And yeah, if you can put links to those in the description below, that would be great as well, so we can all have a look at what we've all created. Okay, let's have a quick look at this model. So if I go into Eevee mode, just turn that plane off. We've got a nice curvy geometry, and then we've combined that with booleans to get a nice crisp cuts into that, and we've also got some sort of paneling on the sides and the front. The first thing then, if I just turn this model off, and we'll have a look what we've got. So we start with the body. Let's just turn wireframe on, and it's a basic geometry. It's just a sphere. Well, in fact, it's a cube that I've subdivided several times and then applied. Nothing difficult there. Basically, a cube, subdivision, and then squash down. And then we've got some similar geometry, which I'm going to use for the handles, which again is just the same thing but just rotated and then mirrored across. So I'll initially start by selecting the handle, and then I'll select the body and press Control plus, that's the Bool tool add-on, and that will generate the modifier for me over here. And then what I want to do is, using the Bevel after boolean, I'm going to click on Bevel, and it's going to make this nice bevel for us, and I want to increase that to about 0.15, and then that'll give us a nice smooth transition between the two objects, or the three objects. So I'll accept that. The next thing then I want to cut in is the side panel, so the glass. I've created an object for those as well. Glass cut side. So again, this is just basically the identical to what we had for the handles, but I've just scaled it up and moved it outward slightly. So what I'll do with this time is I'll click on these bits, the cutters, shift click on the joystick, and then I will press Control minus to remove those, and that'll cut in like that. And then I'll click on the bevel button again, and this time rather than just having a normal difference, I'll change the setting to slice at the top, and then that'll give us a nice sort of panel effect on the side. So just check, it's always a good idea to go around and just check the geometry, and also turn off the overlays so you can see the quality. Just notice in this video it's quite low poly. Normally I would have subdivided these one more time, but I just want to keep the plugin responsive, the add-on responsive, for the sake of the video. So, but in yours you might want a few more subdivisions on curved surfaces like this. So that looks fine. And the next one then is let's have a look, body slice, glass front. So we'll now cut in the panel for the top. So I'll click on this one, shift click on this one, and do the same again, Control minus, then click bevel, and then change that to slice. And just have a quick check, turn overlays off, have a quick look, and you can see we're getting a bit of an issue there. Everything else looks fine. So the first thing I would try, because it's looking a little bit low poly on these corners, I think the first thing I would try is probably just to turn the subdivisions up maybe to 1, and see if that fixes it. So that has fixed it, and it's also given us a bit of more of a curvature there, but I think I want a bit more, so let's try 2. And again, that's made it a little bit more high res on that corner. But we have now got problems over this side, so what I can try is, if I turn off smooth patches perhaps. Let's give that a try. That's even worse, so maybe 1, 2. That seems fine there now. Oh, we got a problem there. 3. So it's a little bit of trial and error just to get a setting that looks good and solves all of the issues on the geometry. That looks fine all the way around now, so just a quick check with this. Yeah, that looks good. So I'll click back on the geometry to apply that, and then let's have a look at the next one that we want. So I want to cut the top in now, so let's have a look at the object for that. So again, just another simple object, and if I click on this one and then shift click on this one, control minus this time, and then click on the bevel button, and then have a quick zoom in, turn off the overlays, and that looks fine. You'll notice we are getting a few issues on the inside corner, and that's because this is not actually affecting the inside corner. That is relying on the geometry that we used to cut. So what I'll do is I'll just Control Z to undo this. Let's turn the overlays back on, and I want to have a look at the top cut geometry now. So let's isolate that, and then we'll go into edit mode, and we can see the bottom of this doesn't have a lot of geometry, which is causing that problem. So what I'll do, let's come out of there, let's look at, turn off the bound mode, so turn that back to solid, and it has actually got geometry. We're using a bevel modifier, so that should be fine. But I think the issue is it's probably not enough segments on there. So let's try changing that to maybe 10. That's a bit smoother. We've got it to 0.7. Let's try that 0.5. And I think as well what I'll do, I'll just put a few more cuts along this section. So Control R, something like that. Move it down because it's only the bottom part that's cutting into it, and then maybe scale those along the in fact, now let's leave that. And also what I'm going to do is select this bottom face, and I'm going to inset it, something like that. And then what I'll probably do is delete that face, select the edge loop, let's just turn off the bevel momentarily so I can see what we're doing, and then I'll do Control F and I'll do a grid fill, and just let's spin that around a bit so it looks right. So that looks better, and then I'll come out of there, come out of edit mode, turn the bevel back on, come out of isolation mode by pressing the / on the numpad. And now if we go on to this, I'll just turn it back to bounds mode. I'm using hard ops by the way for this, so control and click in, but I could do it if I go into the object tab and then just change the display type to bounds. Let's have a look at that. So now let's give it a quick try. If you use the bevel, click on this first, and now let's turn off overlays. And you can see now we're getting a much smoother look on the bottom there, and the bevel around the outside edge looks fine as well. Let's just see if we can turn that up a bit without causing any issues around here. So I'll turn that up to maybe 0.03. And that's messed it up quite a bit, so that's 0.02. That's a bit better. And we could smooth that again. Let's give it see how far we can push the smoothing without any errors. So maybe change that to 6. That's made it a little bit smoother. I would still like to get that a little bit larger actually. Let's see if we can push that. So 0.06. Because sometimes if you go to 0.02 it might cause problems. but if you go a little bit higher, then it'll fix that. Now I'm not really liking the look here though in this corner. Let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, it's a bit too low poly there, so let's turn that back on. In fact, it's high poly, so perhaps if I turn that down to 0 for subdivisions, the smoothing should then take a bit more effect. Yeah, I think I'll actually turn that radius down a bit, 0.03 perhaps. 0.04. So I think that's acceptable. It's not too deformed now in that corner. I mean, if I wanted it wider, what I could do is just fix that up in edit mode after I've applied this over here. I think that's fine. So let's maybe just turn the subdivisions up a little bit, maybe 1. Let's see if we can push that up to about 12. Yeah, I think that's fine. So click on there to apply that, and the next one then that I want to apply is the hole for the joysticks. So I've got 2 items. I've got the left cylinder and the right cylinder. They will cut in there, and let's give this a try. So I'll click on this one. Control minus, and I'm just wondering whether or not this is going to work because this is quite thin there. It might need me to pull this over this way a little bit. The geometry on this version is a little bit different to the one that I showed you at the beginning, but let's give it a quick try and see how it does. So click on this, click bevel, and we'll change that to 0.03 perhaps. Actually, that's worked really well. So let's just have a quick check. Yeah, that looks good. So that's fine. We'll apply that one. Do the same over here. Control minus, bevel, and again that looks pretty good. Let's try. I think it was 0.03 I did last time. Yeah, that looks fine. And then we'll add the buttons on the side. In fact, actually, let's add the joysticks first. So joystick there. And what I want to do is I actually want to cut into the joystick with a version of this that is slightly larger, so that it's sort of cutting in a additional hole. So what I'll do, I'll go into edit mode with these spheres selected, and I'll change it to individual origins under the pivot, so that I can modify each one individually, and I'll change it to local here. And then what I can do, in fact before I do this, I'll shift D to duplicate those, and then I'll go into edit mode again, and now I want to make these slightly smaller. So let's just go into wireframe. So I'll do S, and then I'll just bring those down a little, maybe to about here, and come back out, and I'll select the larger one, the initial one, and then I'll select the joystick, and I'll do a control minus, and let's just come out of wireframe so we can have a look and just double check that's cut in. So that's fine. And then what I'll do, I'll click on the bevel button, and that should fix up all of these shading artifacts. Might need to make that a little bit smaller, 0.005 perhaps, and then maybe turn down the smoothing to 6, and I'll turn down the subdivisions to 0. There we are. So yeah, if you've got a lot of subdivisions on the object that you're cutting into it, then sometimes if you've also got a lot of subdivisions here, it can cause problems where it becomes quite jagged. So that's how you'd fix that. But if you look here, we have got a bit of an issue. So what I'll do is I'll just try and slide the geometry around on itself using the shift under the refine options. So I'll put 0.01, and just see if that fixes that up. So that has fixed that up, but it's moved the problem to there. So let's try actually changing the smoothing to 4. No, 0. Let's have a look at that. Still a bit of a slight problem here, although that seems to be more with the shading than the actual geometry. But let's just try one subdivision, and maybe we'll turn down the bevel segments for this one to 4, because it's quite a small area. Maybe 6 actually. Let's zoom out. Yeah, so that looks fine. It's fine over this side as well. Let's go into orthographic so we can see it a bit easier. Yeah, no problems there, so that's fine. So I'll click on there. And now we're left with the two original spheres, which I'm going to use for the joysticks. But before I do that, let's cut the buttons in on the side. So let's re-enable the button cutter, and it's basically just a couple of cubes that I've then, well, it's initially 4 cubes that I've cut in half and then beveled and then mirrored across to this side. Now sometimes if you've got a lot of objects like this, you can cause issues, so it might be an idea to break them into 2 operations, and I think I will actually do that. So let's go into edit mode, and I'll go into wireframe node. I'll click all these, and then I'll B and then middle mouse button to deselect those, and then P, and then by selection, and then we'll come out of there, come back out of wireframe mode. So now we've got 2 objects, this side and this side. This normally will help us get a less error prone result, so it'll speed up the problem solving. So if we click on this one, shift click, control minus, click bevel. Now I'll turn the slice on as well. So let's give that a second, and let's have a quick check at the geometry. Let's turn overlays off. A bit of a problem here, so let's turn wireframe back on and see what's happening. So that's jumping out for some reason. Let's just try turning the subdivisions down to 2, see if that helps. So that has solved that. Any other problems? Oh, that's created a big problem over here. So I think we're going to need to leave that on 3. Maybe try turning the smooth patch up to 9, see if that helps. Yep, so let's get rid of that. But now it's caused that problem. So let's turn that back down to 8. And this is where it can get a little bit frustrating. It's just a little bit of trial and error. So this problem here then, let's try, I've removed doubles, let's try changing that to 0.001, just in 0001, just in case that helps. So yeah, it was that was causing a bit of an issue, but now that's caused a problem over here. So let's again, we'll try and turn smooth patch this time down to 6. And the problem sort of jumps from place to place, and this is the problem when you've got a lot of different geometries, sort of disconnected geometries in one object. So I mean, I think what I'm going to do, let's control out of this, control Z, and then control Z again. So that brings us back to here. I'm going to actually separate these now. So I'm going to separate them by loose parts. So click on by loose parts. We'll click on this one, control minus, and I'll just do bevel. And that's looking pretty good. We'll turn this back up to 8 now. Because we're working on individual parts, getting one to work isn't going to break others, and that's the main benefit of doing it this way. So let's maybe turn refine off. No, let's leave that on. In fact, I'll turn shift off back to 0, so it's not shifted at all. Let's try turning off fix outside corner. Have a quick look without the overlays. So yeah, that's looking pretty good, that one. So hopefully these settings now will work for all of them. But let's click here, and that will keep those settings in memory. So I'll click on this one, and then this one, Control minus, click Bevel, and that's looking good. So do the same for this one, and I'll pause the video so you don't have to watch all this, because basically now I think we know what we're doing. So pause that there. In fact, I'll just fix this problem before we pause it, so you can see one more time how you would try and fix it with the settings over here. Don't forget though, you can also, if you can't fix it over here, you can go into edit mode and manually fix things, but it's better if you can do it over here. So I'm just increasing the bevel segments now, so that's made no difference. Let's try changing the smooth patch to 6. And that's fixed it up completely. So this is the beauty of separating it out, rather than doing them all at once, and sort of fixing one and then the problem jumps elsewhere. You can just fix it and move on. So still got a bit of a problem here. Maybe try turning subdivision patches down to 2. So let's fix that. Yeah, that's looking perfect now. So I'll click on that one, and now I will pause the video. In fact, we'll fast forward it. Okay, so that's the buttons done. Well, cut in. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to sort of extend these outwards from the body a little bit. So I'll click the buttons. I think what I'm going to do now is let's select all of these buttons. So I'll join these together by pressing Ctrl J on the keyboard, and that gives us one object. So what I'll do now is I want to bring these buttons outwards, so into edit mode, and I'll select, in fact, what's the best way to do this? Control, no. What I'm going to do then is go into edge mode. I think this is probably the easiest way. Alt click this edge, and Alt Shift Alt click this edge, so we're getting the new selection but keeping the original. And do that all the way around. We're using the sort of the penultimate edge closest to the faces here, and we'll keep going. I'll just I'll speed the video up here. Okay, so with all those edges selected, what I'll do now is I'll press go into the select menu, and I'll go into select loops, and I'll choose select loop in a region. So that selects all the edges that are within there, and then I'll press number 3 on the keyboard to choose faces. And then what I want to do is I want to extend this selection outwards to the just beyond the bevel, otherwise we'll mess the normals up. So go into Z, wireframe, and then Control plus 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 plus, and that's one too many, so Control minus, bring us back to there. Now back into solid mode. So I want to move all of these faces outwards against their own normal, basically. Well, the average of the normals. So what I'll do, press comma on the keyboard and make sure I choose normal. and then press full stop and make sure I've got individual origins selected. And then I also want to turn on proportional editing at the top. So if I now press G and Z, you'll see we get all these blue lines, and that's the direction of each normal. So if I bring that outwards now, somewhere probably, in fact, that's a bit too much there. Let's bring that in, maybe to about here. So we've just got all of the beveled region sticking out. So come out of edit mode and have a quick check everything looks good with the normals and things. So yeah, that's looking good. So that's the buttons done. And the last thing then is going to be the, well, before we go into the shaders, is going to be the joystick. So we'll turn overlays back on, and we've got, I think we've got one more item to use. The joystick, there we go. So we're going to bevel this, sorry, we're going to boolean union this to that. And I think before I do that, let's just turn on, under the data tab, let's turn on auto smooth, and then I think that should be fine. Okay, so I'll now shift click on this one and click Control plus, and then click on bevel, and then we need to change this away from slice now, although that does look quite cool, but we'll turn it off and make that into a union, like so. So we've got a nice rounded bevel there, and I'm not liking the look of this on here. So the quick fix then is going to be to come out of this, we'll undo, and we'll go back to where we had the brush union, and we're just going to select that that piece, go into edit mode, and we'll now select the top face. We'll press Control B, and we'll just bevel that, give it a bit more geometry like that. And I think we also need to do the same at the bottom. Yeah. So select the bottom face, Control B, something like that, and then back out of isolation mode. And now if we click on this and then click the bevel button again, we should get a much better result with the normals, as you can see there. So that's that. What I'll do now is click on this and then go into edit mode and go into in fact actually yeah, and then we'll click faces, so number 3, and then I'm going to duplicate this and then I'm going to separate it by selection, come out of edit mode, and then choose just that one piece, into edit mode excuse me, and we'll choose the face and we'll press E and then extrude that upwards, and now we'll choose everything and then we'll scale that outwards, and then we'll press that, we'll choose those two faces again to make sure we've got enough geometry, and then we'll bevel, something like that. Okay, and then what we can do, we can position this, so maybe I want that about there, and I'll shift click on this, Control plus, and then we'll try the bevel again. And there you go, we've got a really nice smooth bevel between those two as well. And rather than duplicating all that process over here, I'll delete this sphere, so into edit mode, X, and then A, delete everything, or V, whichever. And I'll take this object now, Shift D, and then press X, move that across. And I'll go into top view so I can see what I'm doing, and orthographic, and press Z for wireframe to line this up properly, and I'll scale that down. And you can see it's not quite lined up, so around about there, and then maybe scale it up a little bit, something like that. Okay, so we've got two joysticks, and I actually want to, because this one's smaller, let's go back into wireframe, just go into front view. It's not really sat in the hole very well, so I'll bring that down about here and maybe slide it across a tiny bit. What I'll do then, I'll go into edit mode and I'll select this top face and I'll press Ctrl plus to keep extending that until I've got all of that top piece selected. So I think probably, let's see what this looks like. Press O, GZ, bring that up. So I'm using the mouse wheel again to control the fall off of the proportional editing, so we can sort of control that bevel using that, and make it a bit smoother at the bottom. I want to try not to affect the actual part of the sphere though, so this is one way we could do it, like so, and just get it where we want it. And what I've done there is I've brought it back down on itself, which I didn't really want to do, but it did look quite good. So we'll bring that back down. We'll make sure we've got adequate selection. I just want to line it up a bit more with the left one. So about there. And that's it for the modelling. So what I'll do now is we'll move on to the materials. So let's create the first material. So I'll click on new to create a material. Maybe give that a dark colour, something like that. I want it to be sort of a matte sort of finished plastic, so I think that roughness is pretty good as it is. The buttons I would like to be a bit more reflective, sort of a shiny plastic. So I'll create a new material again, and I'll make these black. In fact, let's try red. No, let's go with black. So go with black, and I'll turn the roughness down until we've got a nice reflective look. So that looks pretty good. And then I'll take the buttons and give these a new material as well. I'll go with the yellow colour, sort of close to orange, that sort of look. Maybe keep those, in fact no, let's make those quite shiny as well. Something like this. And then we'll apply that same material to this one. So this one. In fact, was it that one? No, that's the original colour. So I'll use that one. So I'll click on this one and shift click on this one and then press Ctrl L and then M for materials, and now we've taken the material from this onto that one. And then lastly we'll create the sort of glass texture for these side panels. So I'll create a new one. I'll give it a colour, nice blue, and then I'll turn the transmission up to 1, and I'll turn the roughness down, and there we've got a really nice glass material. And then I'll click on this one, shift click this one, Control L, and then choose materials to transfer the materials to it, and that's it. So that is the model complete. And you could then, if you wanted, put in a ground plane. So I'll shift A, add a plane, scale that up and move it down until it's level with the bottom of this object about here, and then I'll give that a material as well, like a nice reflective material, and zoom in, turn the overlays off, and you can see we're back just about the same model that I showed you initially. And that's it. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked the tutorial. Hopefully it wasn't too long-winded, but yep, leave any comments below if you make something different. Again, if you've got somewhere you can link, you can sort of post it like Facebook or whatever, and then include a link in the description below so everybody can see what everybody else is creating. That would be great. And yeah, see you next time.